Welcome to Impact Ready, a show dedicated to helping you elevate your impact in the world. I'm Steph Saffer, your host. Let's explore the power of showing up with intention and energy each day. This is for those who seek to make life truly meaningful. Get ready for impact. Hi, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. Today, we're going to talk about challenge, and more specifically, how we perceive the challenge in our life. It's interesting. There are so many different perspectives that you can take around adversity or struggle or challenge. And what I notice, especially working with clients, the people who have specific ways of looking at challenge have a different experience in their life. They experience more joy, more gratitude, more appreciation, more lightness, more peace. And I want to dig into that so that we can explore what are the perspectives that really help us navigate the world in a way where we feel a consistent joy in our life. The truth is, when it comes to facing challenge, we're all familiar with it. There's no one exempt from challenge in their life. Some people are going through really big seasons of challenge right now. This is something that I learned a lot about from a very early age. I was raised by a single mom. My dad passed away from leukemia when I was 7 years old. And so I learned a lot from my mom, witnessing her and learning what it meant to be resilient. We talked a lot in our household about managing challenge and the way that we wanted to think about it. I mean, she was 33 years old with 2 young kids. My brother was 5, I was 7, and no job when my dad died. And so this was a situation where we really had to bond together as a family and work together and deal with this. And so it was a great teacher for me. And I really learned a lot from my mom watching her navigate all of that. When I was in middle school and high school, I would often get caught up in comparison. And I struggled a lot with, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing with my life? And she would say this phrase to me. She would say, honey, it's not your path. And what she meant was every person has this own process, their own journey, their own path to walk in this world. And because life is unpredictable and it's constantly changing and it happens to everyone, I mean, life really just happens to everyone. Everyone at some point is going to have their fair share of challenge and struggle. If it's not now, it's going to be later at some point. In essence, she was telling me that life was a great equalizer. And that made so much sense to me. That really helped me so much to understand that really my job was to tend to my own life and manage my own challenge. And since then, I've learned a lot more about mindset and perspective and how to effectively use challenge to benefit me. And that's what I want to talk about today. Because everyone experiences challenge and it's not something foreign to anybody, I think the interesting topic and the important topic isn't necessarily the challenge itself. You might look at someone and say, oh, that person has it easy. They're so lucky. Look at their life. And what I have to say to that is, no way. You just don't know their story. Every single person has to deal with their own path of challenge. So because challenge is a part of life, to me, what's more interesting is this question: what am I going to do with it? What am I going to do with the challenge that I'm faced with? And there's often 2 paths that people take when they're faced with challenge. Now, to be clear, I'm not talking about trauma in this conversation. That's a different topic. In reference to challenge, there are often 2 paths. So the first path would look at challenge as an affliction. And an affliction to me is like a burden or something that causes pain. So someone might have thoughts of, oh man, how could this have happened to me? Like, why do I have to deal with this? This isn't fair. I work so hard. I don't deserve this. How can I find success with circumstances like this? That path, those thoughts can feel disempowering. It can feel like you're a victim to it. Life is happening to you. And it can take over your mindset. It can shape your perspectives and influence the way that you talk to yourself. So even when you get up in the morning and you look in the mirror, it influences that self-talk, what you're first saying to yourself. And it influences the way you talk to other people too. Oh yeah, my life, it's a dumpster fire. This whole year is just chaos. You hear people talk about this. They speak like this. Essentially, their challenge and their struggle becomes their suffering. However, there is a second path. And that second path looks at challenge not as an affliction, but as an asset. So something that can become useful or valuable in some way. And a person might think about it like, okay, how can I use this challenge? How can I let it be something that teaches me or informs me or inspires me? Or maybe I can do something different or new or creative with this. How can it grow me? On this path, life is not happening to you, rather, it's happening for you. Totally different. And you hear this in their language too. Oh, yeah, we're really we're in it right now. There's a lot of challenge, but, maybe we can use this to, make some changes here, or we can look at it a different way. It's in their language. And essentially, that person's challenge and struggle, it has become their opportunity. So you have these two paths. You have affliction or asset. And most times, people are very conscious that they're choosing a path or that there are options for path, like multiple perspectives, ways of looking at your struggle or your adversity. So I think the reason that this is a really important conversation is because if we don't pay attention, we miss the chance to be able to choose. We aren't choosing the path. We're just kind of getting swept up, and it becomes a random. And I notice this happens a lot, this idea of getting swept up, getting swept down a path when we get sucked into the flow of culture. So every industry has a culture. You could talk about just a general American culture, but when we get swept up in culture, what happens a lot is culture often takes the path of least resistance. And what I mean by that is a path of least resistance would be that you kind of get swept up and stuck in the problems, the struggles. Like you get mired in the mud. And people will always say, like, oh, misery loves company. But I think what it boils down to is the fact that it feels easier to blame other things. And it feels easier to find community in complaining sometimes, rather than take total ownership of your circumstances, something we talk a lot about when it comes to impact, ownership. But that's actually the tougher path, taking ownership, because it takes more thought, it takes a lot more intention, and it takes a lot more energy. The truth is, though, people do it all the time. People who are high performing or report higher levels of satisfaction, they do it. People who are more financially successful, or they have better client relationships or better marriages or partnerships, they do it too. People who live a fulfilled life, where you might look at them and be like, God, why are they're just so happy all the time? Like, how do they do that? They do it. They choose their way of thinking about the challenge they face, and they all choose the second path, that path that says that challenge is an asset, something that they can learn and grow from. And then that challenge becomes an opportunity. And to me, guys, that's the gold. When you can be in choice and you can say, I want to make sure that this becomes an opportunity for me, so I'm going to seek that out. That is the gold. And, I learned about this idea years ago. Initially, when I heard about it, I thought to myself, damn, I have been choosing the first path a lot in my life, very unconsciously. Like I didn't realize it, but I could see how my challenges had become my afflictions. And so thankfully, with coaching, with self-development, with having these types of conversations, we can become more conscious and break some of these old patterns that we've lived by. Use some tools to see that there's actually another path. There's different ways of looking at challenge and adversity. Now, when I have these conversations with people, sometimes I get met with a little bit of resistance, and I expect it. But the resistance is something along the lines of, well, yeah, that's great, but people have been through a lot harder stuff than you. People are going through some really hard stuff. How would you know what it's like? How would you know what it's like to have to choose to view challenge as an opportunity? And the truth is, I get it. I get it. I understand that resistance. There are people who are going through some really big struggles in their life. We can acknowledge that, absolutely. But it's interesting because my job for the past 15 years as an acupuncturist and for the last 5 years as a coach, those jobs have required me to be a witness to people's pain and suffering. They share these stories with me. And I see their resilience. I mean, I've heard some horrendous stories of struggle. There's days where I come home from the clinic and I have to take a beat. I have to walk into my room and say, honey, I need like a 10-minute meditation by myself, because these stories, they can stick in your brain. They can take your breath away. But it's these people who've taught me this over and over and over again over the years. They're the ones who tell me how they turned their challenge into opportunity. I get to see their resilience. And that's why I know this to be true. That's why I have seen this over and over again. Years of witnessing people, thousands of patient encounters, people sharing their hardest moments. I mean, they have taught me that people can choose how they perceive their challenge. And it is absolutely possible to turn challenge into an opportunity. You probably heard this quote before from Viktor Frankl. It's from his very famous book, Man's Search for Meaning. He says, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And I remember hearing that quote years ago, and I thought, damn, that is absolutely it. That is it right there. To be able to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, that is freedom. That's freedom and it's ownership, and that is impact. And I'm telling you, anytime that you choose, and this is so awesome, but I see this over and over again with clients. Anytime you choose, anytime you are in choice about your perspective, about how you view challenge, how you are looking at and perceiving your adversity, anytime you choose that, you are empowered. You feel more capable, you feel more in charge of your life, and you have been able to take an affliction, what has previously felt like an affliction to you, and you've been able to turn it into an asset, something that is an opportunity for you. So life no longer feels like it's happening to you, but for you. And God, that's a good feeling. So my challenge to you this week is to just look at things and say, God, how am I perceiving my challenge in my life these days? Is it an asset to me? Is it something I can use and grow from? Or is it an affliction, something that feels like suffering and pain? Is it dragging me down? Because I guarantee when you can feel empowered around this and be in choice, your life will feel different. And it's a great thing to start exploring. So I hope that this resonates with you. Until next time, thanks for being ready to impact. Thanks for listening to Impact Ready. I hope today's episode inspired you to own your impact and recognize that you are powerful. By elevating our energy and awareness, we can create exponential change in this life. If you enjoyed today's insights, share them with a friend and subscribe to the show for more. I truly appreciate you. Thanks again for being here.